Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Space News for the special report on the Soyuz MS-10 launch failure. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kyle Henry. Let's talk about this incident.
I never want to hold again.
Falcon Heavy is in startup.
Go Atlas. Go Centaur. Status check.
Go Delta.
5, 4, 3.
So, earlier this morning, the Soyuz MS-10 set out from Baikonur Cosmodrome to go to the ISS. It carried Alexei Ovechkin and Nick Hague. These two astronauts/cosmonauts are safe after a successful abort by the Soyuz spacecraft. This was Hague's first flight and Ovechkin's second flight. As we said earlier, the launch occurred at 4:40 a.m. Eastern Daylight from Baikonur, and this was the 139th flight of a Soyuz spacecraft. Now, initial stages of the flight looked good until booster set. NASA TV cut to the crew being jolted around as something was clearly wrong, and when they went back to the ground view of the launch, there was more debris than a normal Soyuz launch. Another view from a Russian news outlet showed stage setup and then a large cloud forming, kind of like the one that we saw during the CRS-7 failure aboard a Falcon 9. It's also quick to note that one of the boosters was rotating faster than the other three, because if you've never seen a Soyuz launch before, if it's clear out in its day, normally you see all four boosters separating what's known as a Korolev cross. It's a really interesting phenomenon, just how the Russians do their stage separations. But from what we could see, one was definitely rotating faster, at least appeared to be rotating faster than the other two. Now, at this point in the launch, the escape tower had just been jettisoned prior to stage sep, so it's unlikely that the crew actually used the escape tower to get away from the vehicle as the incident took place. Now, the vehicle, the Soyuz FG, had flown 64 flights before this, all of which were successful. The 65th flight is the first failure of a Soyuz FG. The Soyuz rocket has failed before. It's like there have been so many different variants of Soyuz that I don't even know how many times it's failed and how many successes. Like they're probably getting into like thousands of successes at this point. But yeah. So let's do some analysis of the videos that we have. We're going to start with the NASA TV footage. So we're starting this just prior to stage or to the beginning of the incident. So all right, so starting it just prior to the incident, here we go. So everything looks normal up until here. You notice there's just a really quick little flash. I'm pretty sure that was the abort tower jettison, as it happened before stage sep, as I said earlier. So we just cut to where the crew are sitting. This is what it normally looks like. You notice there's that quick little jolt, and I would assume that would be normal stage sep, and then the video feed starts to go out. Now we're back. Now, interestingly enough, the rightmost booster here you see is spinning a bit quicker than the others, or at least appears to be. And looking at it, it appears as if the core has now turned and is more or less pointed, sort of not in the normal direction as it was flying, but almost turned 90 degrees and is pointing to the left or some. In this case, I don't know how to describe that in video. But what we can see in this part, all the way to the left, we can see the escape tower all the way to the left. That seems to be indicating that it jettisoned because it's not with the other things, and obviously the failure had not occurred until afterwards, so don't think the crew were there. The fact that there's no visible plume from the vehicle also seems to indicate to me that the main core had shut down at this point. Let's continue. So looking at it, there's the core that's still burning. There's the 4 boosters. And it almost appears that there's a couple other pieces of debris that have come out as well. Let's go back and start from when it switches to the crew. So initially you have 4 boosters there and the core. And I think that's about it from the NASA video. And they just cut to the pre-made animation. Interestingly enough, in the animation it shows the crew tower, or the escape tower, but the payload shroud still attached. But I don't think that really means anything, because this animation continues on long after the crew have announced that they are feeling weightless and everything. So I think this animation is sort of like what we saw with Ariane 5's launch earlier this year, where the animation kept growing even though they'd lost ground tracking, and it showed up through payload separation before they finally cut it off and said, yeah, something went wrong. So I think the animation is this pre-recorded video. Can't say for certain. I can't see it being taken from actual stuff. So let's go to the other video that we have. This one's a lot shorter. It's only 14 seconds. And it's not as great quality, but it is a different view. So initially, it starts with stage 7. You see that little puff is actually normal. That's what happens for most separations, normal separations. So nothing wrong yet. But as we continue, we see one of the boosters. I think it would be the bottom booster, I guess, in this case. Definitely separate before there's that giant white cloud appearing. But yeah, there's definitely something else is there, and then you see that explosion of white cloud in vapor. It seems to be from the video-wise the right side of the vehicle, and not from the center part, because it seems to start there and expand outward. When it comes back, the leftmost 3 boosters seem to be in a normal position. I think the right one looks a bit closer to the vehicle than is normal. This is also around the time where NASA TV cut back. This video is really grainy, so it's going to be hard to deduce really anything. But again, I still think it looks like that core is turning. The debris, because it's not the best video quality, the debris sort of gets lost almost immediately. Besides the actual boosters, which might indicate that the debris that we saw, the other 2 unidentified pieces that I mentioned in the last video, are smaller than the boosters, but that's just pure speculation on my part. Also, just to be clear, I don't have an inside man with Roscosmos or Energyamash or any of the Soyuz guys. This is just me looking at the video, looking at what I know from other rocket launch failures and analyzing it from there. I could be 100% wrong in my prediction. I'm not going to stand here and say that this is 100% right. I don't have any other telemetry or anything else, so this is literally just analyzing the videos to seeing what went wrong. But that's the end of the second video we have. I want to go into what I think happened. I think this was a quality issue. The Russian space program has been plagued with quality issues, especially in the last 5 years, but really since the end of the Soviet Union. And the prime example of this is the Proton rocket that in the past 6 years, it's flown once or twice, and they've almost had a failure once every year or something. Proton has had a lot of issues, and to see this starting to spread to Soyuz is a bit concerning. There's also the hole that's aboard Soyuz MS-10, which is still at station right now. Noted that they have not finished the investigation on that, but personally I believe that it was caused on the ground by a technician making a mistake rather than one of the NASA crew doing it, or one of the Roscosmos crew, or one of the other crews doing it. Again, I'm probably a bit biased. I am American and not Russian, but I don't think it was NASA. I think there's a lot of psychological training that goes into picking crew, and I don't think any of them would do it. But again, I could be wrong. Okay, but back to the failure. The hole in Soyuz MS-09 is another example of where some quality issues could be coming from. And I think this was an issue with the boosters. In that booster set, we saw the one spinning quicker. We saw the vehicle tumbling, and it appeared to tumble sort of away from that booster that was spinning quicker. Like I said earlier, the core likely shut down, and this is why the crew reported feeling weightlessness, as nothing was accelerating them. And if the core shut down, the third stage couldn't have fired because it needs the ullage from the core to actually ignite the engines. There's also the cloud that it formed. That did not look like it was the full vehicle's cloud. Looking at the Falcon 9's CR7 failure, the cloud that appeared from that was a lot bigger than this one. Noted that Soyuz is a smaller vehicle, but I think that's still something to mention. So honestly, I think this was a quality issue. I think Soyuz will likely return to flight relatively soon. Whether or not they'll do a manned mission is debatable. In the next couple of months, I think, I'm gonna go into where I think we're gonna go from here next. But looking at the schedule of launches coming up, there are a number of Soyuz flights that were still scheduled for later this year. From French Guiana, there were two Soyuz flights scheduled to launch out of French Guiana this year. One was in November, I think the other one was in December. There was a navigation satellite that was supposed to launch out of Plesetsk earlier this year, or later this year in November. There was a observation satellite for Egypt that was scheduled for November 22nd out of Kazakhstan that was aboard a Soyuz. The other French Guiana Soyuz that would have been flown for Ariane Space was in the middle of December. Then finally we had the crew launch, or the next crew that was scheduled to fly on December 19th. I would almost guarantee that that's not going to happen. There was a flight out of Vostochny on December 26th. And that's it for flights that were scheduled for Soyuz for later this year. But where do we go from here? The Roscosmos has said that they have set up a state commission to investigate this incident and to figure out what went wrong. Soyuz MS-09 is currently scheduled to stay aboard the station until December. However, it's almost likely that they'll get an extension. Soyuz can stay at station for about 210 days. For them, that would be until January 2nd. And if no crew or new vehicle is launched by then, it's likely that we could see the ISS abandoned for a brief period of time, which would be the first time in its almost 17 years of being crewed. So that could be a huge thing. But there is one other option that I think is probably slightly more likely if they can figure out sort of the root cause of this a bit quicker, and that would be launching Soyuz MS-11, the next Soyuz flight, uncrewed. I'm pretty sure they can do this because they had scheduled a Soyuz MS-11 or a Soyuz flight next year to fly, or next year or the year afterwards to fly uncrewed for testing of the Soyuz 2 vehicle. That's the Soyuz 2 rocket, not vehicle as in new Soyuz, but yeah. But that could be launched uncrewed and could dock with the ISS and could become the new escape vessel for the crew that's currently at station. It would cause a lot of switch ups in crew scheduling. You know, like the initial crew of Soyuz MS-11 would likely either lose their flight or get pushed to Soyuz MS-12. Like, it could have a lot of effects on it. But this option also allows the ISS to stay habited so you can continue research on it. It would also give Roscosmos a lot more time to determine what went wrong. So I think this is an option we could see happen, but it's still up in the air. We're not even 12 hours out of when this incident occurred, so there's still a lot of pieces in motion. So yeah. But I'm Kyle Henry. Thank you so much for joining us. This story is still developing, so we're going to be keeping you up to date on it throughout the weeks as the incident report goes on. The links to the videos we looked at are in the description down below. But we'll be back tomorrow for normal Let's Talk Space news. Until then, thank you so much for joining us. Goodbye.